Good day, Chief here for CTT. I don't know what's going on with my camera. My camera is that close to me and I'm still getting out of focus. It seems like the further I move it back, I don't know if I'm still in focus or not. I played around with it earlier, but of course I'm this close, so I'm constantly in focus. So I don't know what's going on with my camera. I'm gonna have to read up on it and do some other stuff. But hopefully I can get through this. So, I'm sorry about the fuzzy videos. I'm not going to reshoot them. You get them as you get them. It looks like I'm out of focus again. I don't know what's going on. I need a camera person, it looks like. So I kind of wrapped up Fort Lewis. I'm a CW2, Chief Warrant Officer 2. Got promoted there. I was there all of 98, 99, 2000, and 2001. I'm surprised I was there for 4 years because just as I started to leave, my other 3 warrant officers that I went there with, they kind of preceded me just by a month or two. So we all left together, but we all went to different assignments. I'm finally going to, like I said, to South Korea for the first time. My throat is not dry today. Nope, don't have beer in my beer stein. Wrong color, it's blue. So I took some time off, as I said, because I had to go visit mom and dad like I usually did before I went to a new assignment. Tried to go home as much as possible. And like I said, this time my father is now inside the nursing home, and of course I had to go see him. Wasn't the person. The body was my dad, but the mind was my dad, but the mind was scrambled. And then I had to get I think I shipped my kids or I took my kids to their mother, and then I drove back up to Fort Lewis because I had to put my vehicle into storage for 1 year. And of course you had to buy that gas treatment. You had to have less than a quarter tank. And then you had to drive to this warehouse where they would store it, and they'd actually put it up on lifters so that your wheels were not touching, because your bearings then would probably get flattened on one side. So did all that, stayed one night. I cut it close, spent a night in a hotel, got to the airport. Not my longest flight, because as I said, while I was at Fort Lewis, we went to Thailand, and that was like 22 to 24 hours one of the ways there. And but this was a direct flight. Took me to I can't remember the airport name in Korea that we landed on, but it was like west of Seoul, and there was soldiers there, seeing a lot of Americans, and of course we all got that fancy haircut that signifies that you're a soldier. So we had people greeting us, gathering us, and arrived with the whole bunch. And then they took us to Seoul. And time we got into Seoul, it was already after midnight, if I remember correctly. So they got us to a hotel because there was no room at the inn on the camp, no guest housing available on the base. So we stayed in a hotel, and then we were told, okay, it's after midnight, but you got to be outside and downstairs by 5 a.m., I think it was. So yeah, we all got in our rooms, more or less. Everybody probably just fell down on their beds and went to sleep and got woken up, shaved, and did their personal hygiene, got into a military uniform, got all our duffel bags and everything and all our luggage down. And we were down there at 5 o'clock, everybody. No bus, no truck, no nothing. I think it was finally about 6:30 that they finally remembered that we were waiting outside since 5 a.m. So here we are, starving to death because we had no food except what you had on you, if you had anything. So here it is, 6:30, they finally come and get us, and they're like, oh, we forgot about you people. So they took us to this big auditorium, so to speak, and there was about a couple hundred of us, if I remember correctly. So that we did some minor in processing, and then they were checking their lists, seeing who was going to go north of the river or stay south of the river. And the river I'm talking about is the Han River that runs through Seoul. So if you stayed south of the river, you weren't in the immediate threat zone. If you went north of the river, like where I was headed, you were in the threat zone. So not only was I forgotten by the personnel down in Seoul, so I think we only spent the day there, and then they finally read off a bunch of names, and of course those are the people going up to either 2nd Infantry Division or support for the 2nd Infantry Division for any bases that were up there. Looks like I'm back out of focus, and now I'm really close, and now I'm back in focus. So I don't know what's going on with my camera. Sorry about that. So spent that day, and I think I rode up with a couple officers. Yeah, I did. I rode up with a couple other officers because they came and got us, and then they kind of separated us. So they took us officers in a nicer vehicle than a Deuce and a Half, I think it was, where all the soldiers had their ride. So we all went up, and I went up to CRC, Camp Red Cloud. Well, I get up there. Or did they take me to Camp Essayons first? Can't remember if I went to Camp Essayons first or Camp Red Cloud. But I think I might have went to Camp Essayons, and then they realized, oh, you're the replacement for the other warrant officer over at CRC, Camp Red Cloud. Well, they weren't expecting me. No room at the inn. Again, so to speak. We didn't think you were coming. I mean, the guy that I was replacing was kind of panicked because he's spent his year there, so he's expecting to leave on time, which he will, thanks to me showing up. And let's play with the camera. I don't know what's going on. I'm going in focus, out of focus. It looks like, while I'm talking, looks like I'm in focus briefly. I guess I should stop concentrating on that. Just go with the video. Sorry. This is driving me crazy. I don't know why my camera's not automatic in focus when it's on. I already played with it earlier. So no room at the inn. And I think I arrived once again on a Friday. I always seem to arrive on a Friday or on a weekend. So they're like, they got me to Camp Essayons, and then they had somebody come over from Camp Essayons to pick me up to put me over at CRC. I had an officer, I don't remember who it was. It wasn't the guy that I was replacing, but it was somebody else. And they're like, Chief, we didn't realize that you were going to show up. I guess that's a problem with some people get snatched to stay south of the river and they don't go to the 2nd Infantry Division. I'll get into their slogan later on. Every time you say 2nd ID, you're supposed to say second to none. Yeah. No, I didn't. And I still don't, as you already noticed. So they didn't have officer housing for me. Well, we got an empty room in the barracks, but we're not supposed to do that. Well, they went ahead and did it anyway. Chief, you're going to spend the weekend here because you arrived on a Friday night. Office housing doesn't open again until Monday, so you're stuck. What a weird weekend it was. I come to find out, I think it was like Saturday night, there was loud banging up and down the hallway, a lot of shouting, stuck my head out, but the action wasn't on my floor, but it was on the floor above me or something like that, and it was just, I found out later what it was, and it was an altercation between a sergeant and an enlisted member, so to speak, a junior enlisted member. I'm not going to go into it because I'll probably talk about that situation later, because we come to find out that things just weren't what they seemed to be after all, maybe. So Monday morning, when everything is open, of course, they first take me to housing because they want to give me a place. Well, the warrant officer that I'm replacing goes with me to help me out, and he says he can have my room because he's got like a 2 or 3 small housing unit. It's on a different camp. I can't remember what the camp was. There was like a couple dozen of them over there. They're like, oh, no, that one's already been promised to another officer, so you can't surrender yours and give it to him. So then they stuck me in this old barracks, and I'm talking about the old super long barracks where, I mean, like a length of a football field and narrow. And they had only rooms on one side of the hallway, so one side of the hallway is like a choo-choo train, so to speak. That's the hallway to go up and down, because you can look outside in the hallway, and then there's rooms, and these are like one-man rooms. Well, the room they put me in had a bed, table and chairs. I think I had my own personal refrigerator, and I had one of the big wall lockers. The room was too small to fit all this furniture. I had the scoot at a weird straight out S to get. So if I wanted to put anything in my desk, because it was a chest of drawers, I could only open the shell or the drawer that much before I'd smack into the bed. And the same situation was with the wall locker. I could barely get the doors open in order to do that. And the guy turned around and told me, he says, you're going to be stuck here for a year. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can live like this, because in the middle of this big long single room barracks was the kitchen that you shared with everybody else that lived here. And there was like a couple showers, so I didn't even have a personal shower or I didn't even have a sink in my room. And they told me, you're going to be here for a year. And I'm like, this is hell. It really was. So I made the best of it. I started to make the best of it, and I got my stuff situated. And just as I got everything situated, I tried rearranging the room. There was no way to rearrange that room any different to get you more space. I think I could get a little bit bigger square, but then again, I couldn't open like half the drawers of the dresser. Weird situation. So one day, just before I'm ready to leave that camp, because I was on the same camp where the other warrant officer that I was replacing, but he was over in this big parking lot where they had set these 2 or 3 room little houses. I mean, these were mini houses, self-contained, had everything. And so after 2 or 3 days living in my hellhole, as I call it, I met some of my neighbors. There was only like about a half dozen of us, and there was probably about 20 rooms. So there was only like about 6 of us living in this big thing. And there was no way to take part of your furniture, because you'd have to disassemble it in order to get it out that door. And, stock up another room, because I also signed for the furniture, so I didn't want my furniture to disappear to somebody else and have to pay for it. So after there, about 2 or 3 days, or 2 or 3 nights, wasn't comfortable. And they came over or I went to work, I think it was, and they said, you get in this truck. They got a 2.5, or no, they got the 5-ton. They said, get in this 5-ton and go back to your barracks and pack up and come back with all your stuff in this 5-ton. And they gave me a couple soldiers, which is really weird, and you're not supposed to do that, but someone else had finagled a new room for me. So I moved from this cracker box to a 2-man room where we each had our separate bedrooms, had a common area for a kitchen, and then built off of the kitchen was the bathroom. And I was rooming with a first lieutenant. And I was 100 steps from my front door to where I worked. That's how close I was to work. we'll talk about that further next week because I'm looking at the time. So this is Chief out. I'm in South Korea. Remember, freedom's not free. And I hope most of this is in focus. I am up close, but I don't want to do videos this close all the time now, so I really have to. Chief out. Freedom's not free.